is off at 7:12. We'll call the town council meeting of December 9th, 2025 to order. Jen, will you take roll?
Just give me a moment here. Sorry.
We were excited to get started. Do it by memory.
Councilmember Brown. Oh, sorry. Councilmember Alberish.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Gold.
Here.
Councilmember Wall.
Here.
Mayor Domkowski.
Here, thank you. Councilmember Brown, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will open up public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the posted agenda are invited to do so. Please note, however, the council is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for a future placement on agenda or an appropriate action. This communication is limited to 5 persons, 3 minutes each. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on any matter not on the posted agenda? Okay, seeing none in the room and none in the Zoom, we will move on to the reorganization of the town council. And before we begin the nomination process for mayor and mayor pro tem for the coming year, I just wanted to say quite simply that it has been a great honor to serve with this extraordinary group and to serve as mayor over the last year. And I just wanted to express my sincerest appreciation to my colleagues on the council and our dedicated staff. It has certainly been at times a challenging and transitional year, but it's also been a very productive year. So I thank you very much.
Mayor, I have a point of personal privilege, if you don't mind, please.
Of course.
Before we get too far along, I know this is somewhat unprecedented, but I would like to renominate Mayor Domkowski to serve a second term as our mayor. He's done an absolutely fantastic job as mayor, and I have a few reasons, which won't surprise anybody in this room, for renominating him. First, Brian running the meeting both efficiently and collegially and shows deference and respect to all participants and to all opinions, which was something we appreciate. And it's no small thing that Brian enjoys a great relationship with our representatives at the county, state, and even the federal level. Our town has benefited greatly from his relationships with those folks, some of whom are here tonight. And third, our strategic objectives for the coming year are largely continuations of what's gone on this year, and I think nobody is better positioned than Brian to make them a reality. And the last point I wanted to make is the time commitment, because not everybody is at the same place with their families and their career to be able to devote the time to do this, and at least to do it correctly. It can be difficult for some of us to even attend regularly scheduled meetings, let alone take on the significant extra tasks as mayor. Brian is clearly a busy guy, as you'll hear in a minute, but he always shows up. And I think Mayor Domkowski not only deserves a second term, but we would be very lucky to have him serve in this capacity for a second year. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Brian Domkowski to be a mayor for the coming year.
Second that motion.
Okay. If that is what you are officially thinking, I will just say 2 things. One is deeply humbled by your statement. And secondly, that if the council does believe that a renomination is in the town's best interest at this point in time, it has been an honor to serve. I would certainly do everything in my role to try to fill high expectations for another year, if that is what the majority of the council wants to see. So I'll just maybe leave it at that for a moment. We have a second. Are there other motions to consider?
No one would.
Oh, Jen has her hand up. Sorry, Jen.
Not necessarily a motion, but I am, I'm a little surprised by the motion. So I kind of wanted to just maybe take a moment to acknowledge that it would be different from our standard, our tradition of nominating council members in terms of like who's up next to serve as mayor. And so I didn't want to vote on the motion until maybe just kind of maybe looking for some information. Maybe this is a question for Councilmember Gold. You know, you would have been next in line by my calculations to serve as mayor. So I guess, is it correct to understand that by virtue of your nomination, really you're kind of taking yourself out of the running, that you're declining to, or I guess that sort of sums it up, you know, taking yourself out of the running?
It's a good question. I think, to be perfectly frank, I think Brian is more qualified at this moment than anybody else in the room to continue this, and I actually base my decision on that. I did want to comment on the tradition point, and it has been a tradition in Woodside, and I think in many other cities and towns, that there's a handoff that every year there's somebody in line based upon their tenure, or just where they are and sitting on the table here. It's usually the person immediately to the right of the mayor. I think given that we're now a 5-person body, and given that, I think back, and I know that I mention this from time to time, I sat here 20 some odd years ago as well, and it was a much different job back then. And you could hear the binders opening for the very first time when we're studying the packet while we're sitting here for the first time. It's not that way anymore. This takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. I mean, I've probably spent 20 hours in the past week just working on Woodside, such as in the past few days, working on Woodside issues, as some of the people in this room know. And it's even more so for the mayor. And so I think that rather than just the automatic handing the gavel off to the person sitting on the right, it should be a thoughtful process. We should think who's most qualified, who's got the time, who's got the energy, and who wants to do it. I'm actually quite grateful. I mean, it's a relief to me. And I'm the person who's probably most disadvantaged by this decision. I'm using air quotes here for those of you who can't see, but I think we're going to be really well served by this, and we can sort of pick it up there. I'm not saying we should do this every year. Maybe we'll decide to, but as Supervisor Mueller said to me a little bit earlier, this is very Woodside-esque. We tend to break tradition. And I think if we go to even a 2-year term, even for this time, but even in the future, it's not a bad thing. I think that it gives people a little bit of time to execute their plan and their strategy and make it a reality. So it's certainly not unheard of. But Jen, it's a great question.
Sure with what Paul said, what Paul is saying, because we've got the town center plan. We're gonna at least hear the first pass at it this next year. I'm sure there's gonna be more iterations of it, and I like that continuity, taking us through that. And we've got the housing element has to get fast tracked, so we're ready for the 4-year review. And given both things and the job that Brian has been doing, I think it justifies another year.
Okay. Any questions from the public or comment? Seeing none, any deliberation by council?
No, should all question.
Yes, Jen.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, Paul, I think your answer was really helpful to hear that, for, whatever reason that, you think Brian is in a better position to serve as mayor than you would be. I wanted to just pause on the tradition point, which is something I take really seriously, because I think it goes to the expectations of the voters in Woodside. When Woodside voters vote to elect a council member, they're doing that with the expectation that the tradition that has been followed for years and years in Woodside would continue to be followed, absent some exceptional circumstance. And I think, all of us sitting here as council members, by virtue of having been elected by the residents of Woodside, are fit to serve as mayor until, one of us does something to demonstrate the opposite. Right. So I think the fact that there's always going to be tough issues coming before us. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be time constraints. But I think the expectation of the residents is that we're going to follow this tradition unless there's a real big reason not to. And it sounds like we have a big reason not to, right? It sounds like, Paul, what I'm hearing from you is that, you don't, for whatever reason, feel as though you're in as good a position to serve as mayor as Brian. So for that reason, I can get behind it. I most certainly would not vote for it because I wouldn't vote for it to break with tradition. I think it's really important. And just like many of the towns and cities around us, this is the model that was followed. I'd really hate to see Woodside deviate from that. Because I think, there's a lot of really good reasons why that tradition is in place. So I think, that's what I wanted to say.
I'd like to,
Yes, sir.
I feel like you've done a great job. Like, got a lot of momentum right now. I like the direction you've been going, and so I wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you. Any further deliberation? Hearing none, Jen, we have a motion and a second. Take vote.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
With great appreciation and humility and acknowledgement of the confidence of my colleagues, I will vote yes. Thank you.
You got breaking for tonight.
Yeah, we do have some people from the public actually, but I just as my first motion, actually, just in keeping with the continuity theme for 26, I would like to renominate Mayor Pro Tem Gold for the role again. Paul is an extraordinary asset to the community. He is highly informed on the issues. He is logical in his approach, and I think, as you just heard, he's probably the best orator the council's ever had, at least in my time. So I've come to rely on his counsel greatly over these last couple of years, and I think we'd be in very good hands. So I would make a motion to, just hit the redo button this year one more time as we move past a transitional year into a very challenging year, and I think we'd be well served to have Paul in this role.
Look at that.
I was going to second it.
Do we have any comments from the public on this? Okay. Deliberation from council. Any further deliberation? Yes, Jen.
So yeah, I think, look, no knock on Paul at all. I think, you've been an incredibly dedicated vice mayor. Again, I think the deviation from tradition doesn't sit well with me here. I think the experience of vice mayor is, a really important training year so that the next mayor can step into that role being prepared. And, I look, to the more junior member on our council, and I worry that training experience might be lost. And so again, purely basing, this on how important it is to follow that tradition. I'm not really seeing any extenuating circumstances, right? I haven't heard from the other council members who would be in line to be vice mayor. So maybe curious to hear from them. I think by my calculations, it would be Dick and then Hassan. Dick, of course, has already served as mayor, but Hassan hasn't. And so again, we just voted to renominate Brian based on the fact that Paul, you sort of declined to serve. I'm not hearing that the other council members are declining to serve as vice mayor. And so the argument breaks down a little bit for me.
I'll speak up for myself that I don't plan to serve beyond next year on the council.
I can speak. I'd prefer to wait one more year to serve as vice mayor if I'm appointed. So, but thank
Okay.
you.
And is down. Any further deliberation by council? Hearing none. Jen, we have a motion and a second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Congratulations.
The suspense was killing me.
Okay, with that, council reorg for 26 is done. We do have an acknowledgement of the year that was to mark the occasion, and given the content, I think I would ask you to maybe summarize the document as opposed to any sort of thorough.
Sure.
Reading,
Well,
but
it's a
whatever.
little different now that you're staying put, much to my relief. But we do have a commendation for Brian Domkowski for his service to the community as mayor. I love doing these things, by the way. Whereas Brian Domkowski, a native of rural Illinois who was raised in rural Wisconsin and holds both a Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degree. I didn't know that. In finance from the University of Wisconsin, Madison, has been a resident of rural Woodside since 2005. And whereas Brian became a resident of rural Woodside in 2005, lives on Summit Springs Road with his wife, Ashley, who is here tonight, and their two beautiful daughters and their two first dogs of Woodside. And whereas Brian has served as the Chief Executive Officer of Sand Hill Global Advisors since 2013. And whereas prior to being elected to the town council, Brian was a member of the Woodside School Foundation for 6 years. And whereas Brian is serving his 7th year on the Woodside Town Council, and whereas Brian was elected mayor of the town of Woodside by his fellow council members on December 8, 2020 and December 12, 2024, and again today. And whereas Brian's leadership inspired the approval of Cycle 6 housing element, approval of the expanded parking at Kenyatta Corners, and the launch of the town center area plan update. And whereas during his current tenure as mayor, 2025 was the year of the closed session as the retirement of the long tenured town manager and the selection process for replacement dominated Woodside Town Council work in 2025. And whereas I'm almost done, by the way. Whereas over the last 12 months, Brian has led the town council through a variety of projects and issues, including the barn ADU ordinance, approval of the San Mateo County Sheriff's contract, resolving the meeting schedule in November during election years. It's very well done.
Lame duck provision. Is what-
And whereas Brian oversaw the ceremony and retirement of the long tenured town manager, Kevin Bryant, while championing the selection and introduction to the community of the new town manager, Jason Ledbetter. And now, therefore, I, Paul Gold, newly crowned vice mayor of the town of Woodside, on behalf of the town council, do hereby commend Brian and extend the deep and genuine appreciation of the town council, residents of Woodside, and the town staff for his service to the community as mayor. Brian, congratulations and thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Paul, congratulations, Paul. Congratulations.
You had me at hello, Paul. So I do accept this proclamation, though, as a document that just reflects the hard work and dedication to craft that everybody in the organization brings to bear every year on behalf of our clients. There's not a heck of a lot more that a city mayor could ask for than the commitment and the engagement from this group of people. So thank you very much. And I do see there's a wonder what this is.
Sorry.
I mentioned to Jason about a month ago that the first gavel that I got spelled my last name wrong.
That's unusual, isn't it?
And I kept it and I've displayed it with pride because it's like a Parks and Rec moment, one of my favorite TV shows, and I get a kick out of it. But I will certainly display this new one in front of the old one with pride. I'm guessing, unless I'm wrong about what this is, but tradition being what it is, despite everything happening right now. Yes. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate gavel number 2. So thank you so much. I appreciate the gift and the acknowledgement. Okay, we might have some folks in the audience who have come a long way tonight in a beautiful sweater and might want to say something. So Supervisor Mueller, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Not that far, but not,
You're never that far away.
yeah.
That's the message.
So first off, let me just say what I just witnessed is truly remarkable. I've seen a lot of changeovers. And first, I want to acknowledge, Jen, you're not in the room. So it's tough sometimes to not be in the room and to try to create space for a colleague who might be being overlooked. It was really empathetic of you. For the rest of you, total selflessness. I've never seen that in a changeover before. It really speaks remarkably of how well you get along and that you all voted together at the end that way. It's a really beautiful thing to watch. I've had lots of things, there have been lots of times I've seen changeovers go horribly wrong. And so congratulations to you all on that, and very Woodside West-esque in a wonderful way. First, and then now I wanted to say to you, Brian, I came to say, to do the normal. I'm looking forward to working with you next year. The Board of Supervisors and myself really want to thank you for your service to Woodside this year. Your dedication to civic engagement, including the town center area plan update that you've worked on, your work around resilience against wildfires, managing the transition of town managers, and on a personal note, very grateful to all of you and to you for the conversations that we had and the support you gave us through a very difficult time at the county with the sheriff's office, which serves all of you. So on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I have a commendation to provide you, but very grateful that as I give you this gift, I get the gift of working with you again. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ray. It's an honor to have you as our. Okay. My poor wife has to deal with me later after this meeting. So, are there any other comments from public before we move on? Oh, hi, Ruby, from Assemblymember Berman's office. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, council and staff. I just wanted to say, similar to the supervisor, prepared remarks for your outgoing time in as the position of mayor, but we look forward to continuing to work with you. You've served well on this council, and on behalf of the assembly member, thank you for all the work that you've done, and we look forward to continuing to work together in community. So thank you.
Thank you, Ruby.
Thanks, Ruby.
Us as well. And thanks for being here. And thanks for a great event last Friday. Okay, I think with that, we're going to move past the niceties and move into the agenda on top of us here. So Town Manager Ledbetter, we are interested in your report this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and the Woodside Town Council. This is Jason Ledbetter, the Town Manager for the Town of Woodside. So on Tuesday, 12/2, the Town Center Area Plan Community Advisory Committee meeting number 2 took place here in this space. Items that were reviewed in that evening's agenda were public gathering spaces, transportation, mobility, and streetscape, parking, and land use that included commercial and residential conversations. There was a lot of good conversation that night. And we will be bringing you, Good City will be near the end of Q1 in 2026. So sometime, I'm assuming near March, we'll be coming to council to give an update on all of that information and give you a status as to how the TCAP is progressing along. Secondly, I want to point out and thank her for her service, but point out to the public and also to the council that has been made aware that our Administrative Services Director, Cindy Safe, who has been with the town of Woodside for nearly 14 years, has announced her retirement, and she will be retiring at the end of this actual year, which is just at the end of this month. So that is approaching. And then I wanted to point out that we do have some focus within Public Works at the moment, and the priority projects are 303 Hillside Drive, the Old La Honda Road Stormwater Project, and the Alta Vista Alley Project should all see groundbreaking sometime around sometime around Q1 of this coming year, 2026. We're also working on the sewer master plan and determining, or depending on what happens tonight, the bike and ped improvement project on Highway 84 is the next item that would be on our list. And then finally, I want to point out not only to the council, but also to the public, the unfortunate realities that we do have termites and that we will be tenting this building and we will be tenting town hall over Christmas break to have a pesticide application done on both of these facilities. And so if you do see the circus essentially or the tenting happen, that is what's transpiring over the break. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
It's great. Any questions from council for the town manager?
Expectations for the search on, for Cindy Safe's replacement? Just timing plans?
Yeah, currently we've worked out internally that the goal is that we will have this job posted before we take off for the closure of break. So I believe that is the 19th of this month. We then would turn around and almost in the very center of January, I want to say roughly around the 15th, we would hold interviews. And then the position would be filled with a buffer, a gap of 2 to 3 weeks by March 1st. That's our current goal. And we would be utilizing resources from around San Mateo County. I have one administrative services director from San Carlos committed to sitting on the interview panel currently.
Excellent. Good. Thank you.
Other questions for the town manager? Is there any public comment on any item from the manager's report? Seeing none, I will just close the report with an acknowledgement on behalf of Cindy Safe and her retirement and just thanking her for her years of service. Mayor Pro Tem Gold and I have had the opportunity to be council liaisons on the audit committee for many years and have come, I think, to understand the complexities and challenges of municipal reporting and all the hard work and effort that she has put into making our financials work and be approachable and transparent. So just wanted to acknowledge that and wish her well in the next chapter of her life.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if I may, one last item, which is coming up on consent. I just have a correction whenever you're ready.
Yep, we'll take it.
On item number 5 on the consent calendar within the resolution, there needs to be an alteration of verbiage. Ultimately, paragraph 3 should read, whereas due to the age, condition, and fit of the existing tractor mower, staff recommends replacing it with a new tractor mower. Currently, there's a statement, instead of tractor mower, it states dump truck, and so correction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Duly noted. I think with that, we will, next up is the consent agenda. So all items on the consent are considered routine and will be approved by one roll call motion unless there is a motion made to remove or withdraw an item. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any member of the council would like to see pulled?
Item 3.
Item 3. Anything else? Item 2. Any other items? Okay. Can we get a motion on items 1, 4, and 5?
We'll make a motion to approve items 1, 4, and 5 on the consent calendar.
Does Jen have her?
Jen, sorry.
Sorry, that was a mistake. I just took it down.
Got it. Thank you. We had a vote and a second from Councilmember Brown. Sorry.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, we'll go in order. Councilmember Brown, item 2.
Yes, my only comment on item 2 is we're going from a $475,000 estimate to $676,000. That's a big jump. Is there anything we can do about that? I mean, that's a huge change. And then I see that throughout everything that we're looking at, that it could be breaking the bank here.
Yes, I'm sorry, Councilmember Brown. So ultimately, the item that you're looking at is a reflective into the work that was completed on the road rehabilitation work that gets done annually by the Public Works crew here in the town of Woodside. So ultimately, sometimes that's a micro seal or a slurry seal or a chip seal. I think primarily over the last few years, you've been seeing a lot of micro seals essentially. And so what happened is that the old Public Works Director came forward a few months ago and we asked for the alteration of the increase in funding. And the council agreed upon that because of the cost through COVID had increased so drastically over the last 5 years that how much mileage we can get done in the town had reduced so drastically because of the price to do this type of treatment. And so the council actually had already given us authority to raise the bar to that level. And we're just coming back and letting you know that we completed the project within the budget that you guys allotted for us. But I think we have the deputy town engineer here who can elaborate on that as well.
Thank you, Jason. And yes, we have completed the project within the allocated budget that was approved in June of this year, June 2025.
Basically, what you're saying is that the increase is mainly related to better quality, longer term usage than simply estimates are wrong or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. But you have pointed out something very important that we've talked about behind the scenes leading up to this moment, which is ultimately we anticipate that we are going to have to bring a budget to you annually now that takes into consideration the need to increase this funding probably closer to $700,000 annually.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on consent item 2? Any further deliberation from council? Councilmember Brown, would you like to make a motion?
I move that we approve number 2.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Moving on to consent item 3, Mayor Pro Tem Gold.
Yes, so item 3 is a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute a maintenance agreement between the town and the state of California DOT to, this is concerning the Woodside Road bicycle and pedestrian improvements east of Highway 280. I know that there's been a lot of input from the public on this and that they wanted to make some comments. So I'm doing this as a courtesy to them, that if there's public comment or comment from other council members, that this would be the time to do so. Just providing that space for them to do so. If you've got any, I mean, if the town manager has any comments to make on this particular issue, that's fine.
Yeah, would the council like a staff report at this time or would you like to wait?
I think it might provide some clarity, actually. We appreciate that.
Okay, so I think between myself and the assistant or deputy town engineer, we should be able to give you some background. But ultimately, tonight, what you guys have in front of you is a maintenance agreement. And so anytime a local agency is attempting to add infrastructure or make an alteration to a state highway with Caltrans, ultimately, Caltrans generally gives you the obligation to maintain that to maintain the infrastructure that you're placing into their right of way. And so tonight, what we have is this maintenance agreement that the town council can accept, ultimately creating the oversight to the town and the obligation for years to come within our budget in order to maintain this new infrastructure. We believe, and I'll let Cindy McCullough discuss this a little bit more, we believe that this is the final piece and that the encroachment permit with the design would then follow to be approved after this moment. But currently, this is a project that was funded through community funding about 4 to 5 years ago through the federal budgeting process. So there was not a specific grant. And based upon that, that means that this money has to get billed back by December 31st of 2027. And so it puts the town of Woodside at a disadvantage over completing this project. Currently, we are asking Caltrans to approve the $800,000 bike and pedestrian improvement project along Highway 84, and we're at the mercy of their time frame. We believe that time frame is coming to an end here in the next month, where we will have an approval to move forward with this project, where we would then come back to the town council with bid documentation requesting that you allow us to go bid the project and actually do construction in 2026, thereby giving us a gap to guarantee that we don't have to expend general fund money. We will be expending the money coming from the federal budget. If we make an alteration, we believe that we lose this level of control and the item goes back to Caltrans and they reopen the encroachment permit, and we don't understand the timing of that. We don't know if that's 12 months, if that's 2 months, but we know that risk is involved. And for staff, we're going to continue to move forward until the town council advises us that they would like an alteration made on this project, at which point we will certainly make any alterations that the town council would like to make. But we want the council to understand the risk that we could possibly lose the funding of the project. And so I'm not sure if that gives you the background that you need, and I'll let Cindy McCullough fill in any gaps you think are pertinent.
Oh, Jason covered everything, so thank you, Jason.
That's great. Any questions for staff before we open public comment?
Financial impact of the maintenance agreement? I know it's in here, but
Yeah, relatively low. We believe it's $1,000 to $1,500 monthly. But ultimately, it's definitely something that you should consider because it is in perpetuity and the lifetime of the town.
thank you.
And for the broader project, circulation approved or endorsed?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. So this item there are some caveats actually to this item where I believe staff did fail ultimately. And that was that I think Mr. Lubin has pointed out that there wasn't really a public process here. And I think that through the transition from the Public Works Director, Yazdan Imrani, who just went down to Rialto, him coming on, he inherited this project. And so I don't think he understood the need to go out to the public. And so at his last circulation meeting, it was brought to our attention by circulation member Steve Lubin that this project had never actually gone out to the public, never been reviewed necessarily by the circulation committee. So we brought the engineered group to the following circulation committee meeting where they did have an opportunity to review it. And Mr. Lubin did have an opportunity to work with the circulation committee over the issues that he's brought forward at that time. And I believe we have a circulation committee member here this evening who could speak on this. But at that meeting, the circulation committee felt that they didn't want to take the risk to advise to make the request to council to make the alteration at that time. So we don't have circulation committee's advice asking you to change this project.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll open up to public comment. Mr. Lubin.
Sorry, Brian, I had a question.
Oh, sorry, Jen. It's hard. I'll
Yeah, no, I know. Sorry I just wanted to jump in to make sure I didn't lose the opportunity. So question for Jason, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. It sounds like, tonight, what's before us is approval or a vote on the maintenance agreement. The council will have a future opportunity to weigh in on the design. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. I would say for Mr. Lubin's point, probably this evening, the time would be of the essence. So any change, or if the council did choose that they wanted to see an alteration, we would prefer that we would have a higher probability of success if it were to happen sooner rather than later.
Okay, so a future opportunity to weigh in on the design, would that happen at like our first council meeting in January, or like when would the actual design be before the council?
That's a great question. I'm going to refer to Cindy McCullough.
Right now, the plans that we submitted to Caltrans are almost at 90% complete. So pending Caltrans approval or comments, we'll make the changes that they require us to make to give us an encroachment permit. Once the encroachment permit is approved, then we'll bring the plans and specs to council for authorization to bid. So
Okay,
if
that's
we,
helpful, but if we wanted to make alterations to design, that would be our opportunity to do so at that moment.
no, so once the encroachment permit is approved, if we make any changes, we'll have to go back to Caltrans to resubmit and review the plans.
So if council wants to suggest changes on the design, it has to happen tonight.
Correct. If the council recommends, or if the council advises staff to make changes in the design currently being reviewed by Caltrans, yes, we'll make the changes and we'll present the revised set to Caltrans for review.
Okay, that's it. That's important to know, I think. So
Okay.
I have a couple more questions. Given that we need to provide feedback on the design this evening, if I may, are the engineers, is Cindy, are you the right person to ask about the design?
I know the design, I've reviewed the design, but we don't have the designers here tonight. But if we can have the designers available at the next meeting if the council advises us to.
Because one thing I wanted to ask about was my understanding is that at the circulation committee, they presented this design as really the only viable option. And I kind of wanted to dig into that a little bit to understand, is it indeed the only viable option? Is there a scenario where they could put the pedestrian aspects in the right of way? Is that something you'd be able to weigh in on, or is that really something that we would have to direct towards the actual designers?
No, I can weigh in on. We can redesign the project. It will definitely increase the cost of the project. Currently, the project is budgeted at $800,000, which is the grant money. I believe when the previous public works director was reviewing this plans with the designers, they looked at the options and suggested this was the best option to not disturb the dirt area or the shoulder area behind the curb. So, and this was the best design they came up with. So that's how much information I got from reviewing the design. But definitely, I mean, if the council directs the staff to redesign the project, we can look into options of redesigning the project and looking at some of the areas there is enough space to put, but it will cost more than the grant money. And like Jason mentioned, we are on a tight schedule because these are earmarked funds. We cannot ask Caltrans to extend the deadline.
And the deadline we're driving towards is really the approval of this maintenance agreement, right?
No, the deadline is this project has to be constructed and all the funding the town has received all the invoices for this project by December 31st, 2027.
Okay, so I got just maybe kind of one of my takeaways from reading some of the feedback that we got on this, one of the questions I had is really, why can't the path be built outside of the current paved area? I wanted to understand a little bit better, like why that isn't an option.
I don't have an exact elaborate answer of why, but I can discuss with the engineer. I looked at the comments that we received. And Steve provided a video, which I looked at, and there's some areas where a retaining wall might be required, or a lot of, I'm not sure where the utilities are in that area. Currently, the design is so we did not disturb any utilities, or we think we don't have any conflicts with the existing utilities per the survey. And I'm not sure if there's any utilities behind the curb or what the survey results came out from the designer.
Okay. Do you know what the design constraints are? It sounds like cost, not disturbing utilities. Were there any other big design constraints that you were designing towards?
In some sections, there was a slope, or there was uphill slope, or some sections there was a retaining wall that was required.
And then can you comment on like to what extent the design is based on not removing plants or trees?
There is very minor shrubbing or maintenance work per se. We're not removing any trees. That's what our application also said. So just to backtrack, so we had to get approval from Caltrans. The environmental document that we submitted basically said we are not removing any trees, which is correct for this project that's proposed right now. We're not removing any trees or any major digging. That sped up the environmental process on this project as well.
But the question on the trees is the design, was a design constraint not removing any trees so that it could go quicker? I guess what I'm getting at is like,
Correct.
are we committing to not removing like really big mature trees, or are these like smaller, shrubs and smaller trees?
So basically, the environmental document that was approved by Caltrans was a rider off of their project. So Caltrans recently did a project on the same stretch from Highway 280 to all the way to 101. So we said we are just not disturbing any undisturbed areas. We are only working within the pavement, which is already disturbed. That was our main point in that environmental document that we submitted. It's a CEQA form that we submitted, and Caltrans basically said, since we're not disturbing any soil, the improvements are all planned on the asphalt section. So that's why we just wanted to keep in the asphalt section to comply with the environmental document.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, we'll now go to public comment. Mr. Lubin.
I'm, really love the idea of having a good pedestrian path here and a safe bicycle facility. But I think, can you hear me? Yeah,
If you get a little closer, it might be people online.
But I'm really frustrated that nobody's really looked at these drawings. I've tried to get a lot of people connected with the town to look at these drawings, and Cindy just now is looking at them, and I don't think there's really a good understanding of the relationship between these drawings and what's out there on the ground. I asked and I do think that there's room, and John Langbein, who's here, did go out and measure the distance behind the curb that's flat and distance to obstructions. And there's basically nothing except for Scotch broom that's in the way of building a path behind the curb. What the drawing proposes doing is ripping out a half a mile of curb that Caltrans just put in. And you all know that I tried to get this project coordinated with the Caltrans project, and you said, no, we'll deal with it later. And here we are ripping out what Caltrans just put in, which seems insane, especially when there's room, right there to build a gravel path that's much more consistent with Woodside standards. And instead of building an asphalt sidewalk that's going to be very difficult to maintain because it's on Whiskey Hill Formation expansive soil. And in the town is, in terms of the maintenance agreement, you're going to have, I think, a larger expense to maintain that paved path, and you're going to take on the maintenance expense of the bike lane that you don't have now. On my, I think it's my, what is my November 9th letter to the Circulation Committee, I made suggestions of ways the project could be changed to improve it and to make it cheaper. I mean, it's, ripping out this curb is an incredible waste of money and resources. Did bring this to the Circulation Committee. The design engineers made a presentation to the Circulation Committee. They claimed that there wasn't enough room in the right of way to build the facilities, which is not true. They said there were trees in the way of building the path. This is all to build the path outside. That's also not true. And so and they, I was not able to, I suggested at the circulation committee that we look at the drawings and see where the right of way is, but the chair did not allow that. So the circulation committee was trusting the engineer's veracity, which I think was not there. So I don't know if you have other questions. I many things to say.
Well, thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm John Langbine. Also went out there and made measurements, and essentially you've got 5 feet at least to work with for a pedestrian path outside of the paved area. The other thought I had was about maintenance. I think you were estimating $1,200 a month or something like that. I would assume that's anyway. One expense, the other part of that proposal was to make the bike lane a buffered bike lane, or actually a class 4 bike lane, which is they put plastic separators. So it cuts the bike lane width to 5 feet. And bike lanes or the shoulders accumulate trash and glass and whatever. So is the county, or not the county, but the city willing to come up buy a sweeper that's 5 feet wide? I'm not sure that's a pretty expensive, I would imagine pretty expensive unless you just use brooms or hand brooms. Anyway, so that's another expense if you were to narrow the bike lane. Right now, it's just part of the Caltrans maintenance. It's, they may or may not sweep it. Actually, they're pretty poor about sweeping the roads, but anyway, it's not your responsibility. So anyway, I think Steve's observations are spot on. And I would suggest that the council direct staff to look at the project again and be critical about it, and to assess whether the solution that was offered by the engineers is the best solution. I think there are other solutions out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Good evening, Britt Von Thoden of Menlo Park. I'm not a Woodside resident, but I've been cycling Woodside Road for 50 years, going up and down and through the area. And I hear their perspective, and my perspective is from a cycling user of the road, and the 5-foot width of the bike lane or proposed bike lane is, in my opinion, wholly inadequate. So Mr. Lubin has done some review of an application that bicyclists use and determined that the speed of many of the cyclists, he wrote, was roughly 84% of around 2,700 cyclists or more that use this app went greater than 20 miles an hour down Woodside Road. So with a 5-foot wide bike lane, so that is. That's an annual 2,700 so far up to the end of October this year. So 5 feet is from where my left hand to the end of the tape. Some bicycles nowadays, mountain bikes, have handlebars that are 30 inches. So from the end of the tape to there. And then he had also seen on that app that 16% of users were speeds less than 20 miles an hour, which would tell me that you're going to have a lot of bicyclists wanting to pass on that 5-foot section if it's bound on one side by a curb and delineators on the other side. In my mind, I think you're going to end up with 2 separate types of users of Woodside Road. You're going to have the slower cyclists and some that may go fast within the bike lane, and others that have gotten frustrated over the years or days or months and drive and ride in the outside the bike lane, in the traffic lane possibly, or right up against the traffic lane. One option to that, I think, is the delineators could be removed. There are notches that are put in the road, and some similar to the way snowbound roads have the reflective barriers or markers on the road in grooves in the road, but some highways have the cuts in the road to where if people meander outside the traffic lane, their tires rumble. So that to me would be safer, as well as I stopped at Southgate Road today to take a look uphill towards what is actually south, but we'll call it west here. And so there's signs there. And if the delineators are placed there, figure people are sitting down like this, the delineators, if it's the same style that's used next to Woodside Road, are roughly 36 inches tall. And so they might, because of the bend in Woodside Road, add a perceived wall because they'll appear closer because of that bend in the road. So I just see that as another obstacle of, I believe cyclists will see cars, but I'm not so sure, and we know how people drive these days, that the drivers of vehicles will see the cyclists. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Funding risk aside, that was really helpful with your tape measure. Is there a defined width that would make you all feel better if we could get it? I mean, I hate to, let me just one quick follow-up.
Lane outside Woodside High School is 6 feet, 10 inches.
So
So
7 feet.
that's
2 extra
better.
feet.
I would say it's not ideal, but it's better.
Okay, thank you. Steve, no second bites yet, my friend.
Okay.
Hold on. Any other items? Mr. Drucker?
Thanks. Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
So I'm Dan Drucker. I'm coming to you in my elected capacity as the president of the Moore Road HOA and appointed as part of the TCAP and as part of the TCAP and the circulation committees. You've heard before that this project's been discussed extensively for the last 18 months or so in circulation. It's also been discussed extensively within the 3 large homeowners associations east of 280, which represent about 1/3 of the town's population. At the November Circulation Committee meeting just a few weeks ago, we held a focus session on this topic, and the leaders of the 3 HOAs east of Woodside all expressed their support for the project, both in writing and in person. And so that's about 1/3 of all Woodside residents saying they'd like this project to happen. At the end of the discussion in circulation, Steve presented the same arguments we heard today, and they're valid arguments. He had asked for a motion to the council coming from circulation that the council not support the project. There was not a second to that motion, and the motion failed. So it says that circulation, the feeling among circulation was let the project go forward as it is. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing else. My sense is that the residents of Woodside east of 280 view the project as an important step towards providing safe pedestrian and bicycle, so both pedestrians and bicycle connectivity from their neighborhoods to the town center. We forget often Woodside High. It's also an important connector for kids in Woodside that go to Woodside High School. So we want them to be able to walk and ride to school safely. The bollards were just mentioned. So the vision here is to put protective bollards, the posts like we have already down the lower part of Woodside Road on this part as well too. Town staff designed that in on purpose, not just to create extra safety for the bicyclists, but also we have a major problem with illegal dumping, with illegal parking, illegal vending on Woodside Road. And town staff designed those bollards to make it more difficult for those activities, those illicit activities to happen in that section of Woodside Road. Another major benefit that town staff saw was that they feel that it'll signal cars coming off of 280 that are flying down Woodside Road. It'll say, look, you need to slow down, that there's a protected bicycle lane here. It's not okay to go 50 or 60 miles an hour down the hill. So we think that it'll improve safety for residents trying to turn on Woodside Road. Today, the residents call it the game of Frogger. If you're familiar with that, trying to turn out of their streets. So this would be anyone who lives or travels on Moore, Northgate, Southgate, High, or coming out of Menlo Country Club. It's real dangerous to cross Woodside Road, and we think this will help slow that down. So my personal opinion is the project's not perfect, but perfect is the enemy of good and a big improvement. We have to live within Caltrans rules, and that's what we heard at the circulation committee, is that the consultants work closely with Caltrans. This is a project funded by a federal grant, so it has to be ADA compliant. And there's lots of challenges. They said they went over the design inch by inch, and my feeling is we need to trust the professionals in doing the best they could to balance the need of pedestrians and bicyclists and our kids going to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Yep, one, sir, of course. Hot issue.
Milo Fenzi, 937 Kenyatta Road. I haven't been in here for quite a while, but I used to be on the bicycle committee, the circulation committee. I was chair of both of those for ages, and so I have quite a lot of familiarity with horses, people, bikes, cars, all sharing the roads. And you've heard statements from cyclists about what'll happen. I think I'll just bring out the point. Someone was trying to design paths at a university one year, and they got all sorts of bids to do this for thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some young kid said, "Oh, I'll do it for $50." Give him $50. He waited till it snowed, and then he saw where all the footprints were, and said, "Just that's where your paths ought to be. If you put your path somewhere else, people are going to walk. You know, they walk where they walk. And if you create something that doesn't work for bicycles, they won't use it." And what happens if any of you ever go down Edgewood? Edgewood has a bike lane on the side. It's narrow, there's often rocks in it. And some bikes try to ride in that, and a bunch of bikes get out in the traffic lane. And it's a pretty steep hill. And if you pedal really hard, you can go 40 miles an hour down there. Cars go 45 to 60, but you'll see bikes sitting out in that lane because it's not safe to use this other thing. And I think you need to understand that what you're creating, and I understand the constraints on dollars. I understand the desire for people to have pedestrian access that works down there. But while you were doing that, you were creating a situation where bikes are not going to, at 20, even 30, 35 miles an hour, bikes are going to be out in that traffic lane. And trying to pass a bike in a 5-foot lane that's a little kid going 7 miles an hour to get to school, when someone who's trying to get down to their office on time, commuting at 25, 30 miles an hour, there's not enough room to safely pass. The kid wiggles while you're going by. And so you're creating an accident creation spot. And I understand all these constraints and no one's happy about it, but the thing you're creating will have lasting impact and cause damage to people. So I would really suggest that you take the opportunity to bring the engineer in, confirm that all these people that say there's enough feet to do this, and because you don't tear up the curb, and because you could do it with gravel instead of pavement, which is going to get buckled all the time, it'll have lower maintenance cost, and it'd be a ton safer for all parties concerned. And I would really recommend that from a safety point of view, for all participants, you take action now rather than hope that the thing I've just described isn't real. Thank you.
Thank you. Hassan, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Hassan Farkande, Chair of Circulation Committee. A couple comments on this one. First of all, I think everyone agrees this is a suboptimal process. I think partially, unfortunately, it's because of Caltrans, right? We have a much better relationship now, thanks to Dan and other folks. I think if we'd had that 5 years ago when the grant was made, we could have gotten in on their project, but that boat sailed. We're going to do better going forward. I think this one is still a large pile of money. It's $800K against the, what, 10, 12, $14 million town budget. So it's a large amount of money. And I think it's the definition of a shared resource that's going to require compromise. We're hearing about cyclists that want to go 20, 25, 30 miles an hour, et cetera. You have to go to the speed that is safe in the conditions that are present. If the lane is narrower because we want it to also optimize for pedestrians, then the cyclists have to accommodate for that, even if they don't want to. They shouldn't be hitting kids. Hopefully high school kids can go more than 7 miles an hour, but they shouldn't be running into them. And if they have to wait, well, I'm on Kenyatta Road, when someone's going 25, I have to wait in my car behind them instead of wanting to go around them and do 35. It's just the nature of using public roads, which are shared resources. I think Cindy said something that's really important. I just want to emphasize it, which is the project was designed to not disturb dirt because dirt needs CEQA. I imagine there's no scarier word than CEQA review for slowing a project down. And so that's the constraint that's causing this, let's call it suboptimal design. I've seen that section too. I'd love to have the trail out there, but if that's an extra year and the money goes away and then we have to come and tell you guys, hey, we need $1 million project or a $500,000 project and there's no, quote, free money from the federal government, that's a much harder thing to ask for. And so to me, we want to encourage pedestrian use in the town. There is currently no way to walk from here to our town high school. I didn't realize this until I was taking my kids to the summer camp there. I was like, my kids literally can't walk here. They can't walk to the high school, which is, something we're trying to fix. And so I think it's the constraints that, while not great, are important. If we were talking about $10,000, sure, leave it alone, go do something else. But I think, again, we've hired these engineers. They're not idiots. They're qualified for their positions. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of statements have been made that can't be qualified, like the whole thing about the asphalt versus the gravel. We've asked Caltrans. They said it has to be asphalt. It has to be ADA compliant if you're using federal funds. There's all these statements that people like to kind of dance around them because it fits what they want, but there are rules we have to follow. We can go cavalier and do what we want and hope Caltrans doesn't, beat us up for it. I don't think that'll fly. Or if the federal government gives us an extension on the money, which I do not think will happen in this administration. So again, I think Dan and the other folks who live over there have made it clear this is something they want. They want to be able to walk between their neighborhoods. We have to consider all users. And if it takes some space from the cyclists to give space to pedestrians, I don't think that's an unreasonable thing. And the last thing, I'll be honest, my guess is a lot of the cyclists in that section aren't Woodside residents, but I'm certain the people who are going to be walking there probably live in the homes in those homeowners associations, those areas, and are Woodside residents. And personally, I would prefer to bias towards Woodside residents than outside visitors. So anyways, I support the project despite its imperfections. And I believe Jason and the rest of the staff that if we don't do it quickly, we're going to lose the money, and that's probably not fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other first timers? All right, how about 2 minutes for a rebuttal, since it's your issue?
To answer your question, I think, if you are going to have bollards, there has to be 8 feet at least behind it. And I think that's kind of what's out there now. If you put bollards in the existing buffer, I think that would be safe. And in terms of all the neighborhood associations supporting this, none of them, I would dare to guess, have seen the drawings, have seen the actual design. And in terms of gravel path, that's what we just put in on a state highway by the school. There are, in my using Strava as a guess, there are about 3,100 individuals who ride a bicycle on this section in this direction every year for about 31,000 incidents. So that's like 31,000 times people ride down there every year. And so I would dare to guess that the number of walkers is going to be far less, and that we owe some responsibility to make it safe for a great number, especially when it's easy to make a more pleasant situation for walkers.
Great, thank you. I think with that, unless there's anyone else that would like to comment for the first time, seeing nothing in the Zoom room, we're going to close down public comment on that. Deliberation from council. Any thoughts on anything we've heard?
I've got some.
Okay.
So once again, the issue before us is the maintenance contract and not the design. But I understand that they are related. I mean, that's pretty clear here. So, but what's before us is we have to have the maintenance, or Caltrans will fail us to even go further and consider this. But I would like to point out a few things, because I'm guessing that maybe other than Councilmember Brown and Dan Drucker, I'll bet the three of us, I'm going to just say me, drive that strip more than anybody else in this room, because we live right there. And to get to the 280, we have to go by there. If you live on this side of the 280, you don't necessarily have to go there unless you're going into Redwood City. We always drive on that. So I'm going to have a comment about that in a minute to address some of the issues there. This has been going on since 2021. When Anna Eshoo was, I think Chris had something to do with that, if I'm not mistaken. Brian did, sorry. I knew one of you guys did. It would be, yes, of course. But so this is a big deal, and it's especially a big deal for those of us Eastsiders who, want to come here. Somebody mentioned a 7-year-old driving on a bicycle to come this way. That's not the Woodside School District. So there's no 7-year-olds riding their bike there anyway. I actually walked that area back about probably 15 years ago, essentially on a dare. I'll never do it again. And by the way, I was on the other side of the road. I was on the westbound side of the road, if you will. You're right, the directions are wrong, but it's the westbound side that we refer to. I would never do that again, because it was the most dangerous thing I may have ever done in my life. Just taking your life in your hands, especially as you get to that entrance lane to the 280. and cars are driving all over the place. We need a safe way to get people from that side of town to this side of town. There is no way. And it's not just bicycles who use it. I will have a comment on that. There are people who want to walk that way. And there's people, quite frankly, from this side of the 280 who want to be able to get to the high school. And they really don't have a safe way to do that right now. So there's a lot there to consider. I'm surprised that the $800,000 that Anna Eshoo got us has lasted this long, because this administration has literally pulled money from it. They haven't hesitated to cancel projects, especially in California. We do have the money here, and I don't want to lose it, and I don't want to let perfection be the enemy of good in a case like this. I knew I'd get that phrase in there somewhere. But this is a pretty good project. I admit it's not ideal, but I think that it does accomplish the main issues, which is to provide a safe avenue for pedestrians to get from one side of town to the other, and also to get bicycles through there. This did go before the Circulation Committee. There's been ample opportunity, I think, to do it. I think that we do need public comment, and I think that that point is very well taken, and hopefully we can get that. But we have to understand the constraints that we're talking about here. Caltrans has their own constraints, which really they're the biggest bureaucracy in the state, and they call the shots, and what they say is going to go. And so we could say we want to make it bigger, wider, anything else. Caltrans says no, the answer is no. And if we run out the clock on it, we won't have anything. And then we're sort of left in the lurch here. I did want to mention that a third of our town, as I think Dan had mentioned, lives on that side. And they do need a way to safely get back and forth other than cars. And I think that we're all sort of in favor of getting more cars off the road and using bicycles and even walking, God forbid, to get from there. And right now there is no place to walk at all, period. End of sentence. There's just no other way. And I think Hassan made just some great points there, as he usually does. And I think that in this particular case, I concurred with every single point that he said. It's not perfect, but it is good. The last thing I wanted to mention was the number of bicycles. And Steve, you know that I think the world of you. And but I've lived in Woodside for 30 years. And I drive that stretch of road. By the way, I drive that stretch of road every single morning at about 7:30 because I take my grandson to his school. So I'm always on that road going there. And it does back up at about 7:30 in the morning. I have to tell you that. This weekend, I was actually up at Alice's restaurant, and I drove all the way up there. I had some business to do up there for the town. And was up there, and you see literally hundreds of bicycles over there. I'm going to tell you that I probably saw more bicycles this weekend just driving up to Alice's, as everybody knows. I mean, that's like bike heaven, and God bless them. They're all, much more fit than I am out there, doing their thing, and they're just amazing at what they do. I saw more bicycles this weekend than I'll bet I've seen in 30 years on that strip of roadway. I'm not exaggerating. So when you talk about we need a wider pathway because bicycles have to pass each other, you never see bicycles on that stretch of highway. I shouldn't say never, rarely. And if you do, it's onesies, twosies. Let me finish. It is very rare. I'm only telling you my observations are there's not a lot of bicycles in there. You can make it 7 feet wide. You can make it 10 feet wide. Nobody's there. I mean, you just don't see very many people riding on that stretch of road. Now, go by the school when it's emptying out, and you'll see hundreds of kids getting on their bicycle coming down, and they have a pathway, fortunately, as do pedestrians, to get all the way into the town center, or actually to head out towards the little store and head west. But in that stretch, there's nobody on it, and the people that are on it are usually pretty good, right? I mean, like I said, it's rare that we see anybody on that roadway at all. It's just not very well used. So I don't think that the congestion that we're considering here, that there's going to be Pelotons going down that area and they need a big wide space. It's the onesies, twosies, and it's very, very rare. And I'm not exaggerating. I rarely see anybody on there. By the way, I'm not going to confine that observation to just the 280 to Woodside Hills and Woodside Heights and to the high school, all the way down Woodside Road. You don't see them all the way down. We now have cleared all those lanes and there's no parking. How often do you see bicycles going down in front of Starbucks or in front of Chuck's Donuts? That would be never. You just don't see them at all. And so it's rarely used. So I think having this shared resource, as Hassan, I think, so aptly put it, That's the way it's going to be. And I think that on the occasions that there's going to be a few kids walking to the high school there, yeah, hey, slow down. That's what you do. That's what we do in cars. That's what bicycles should do. That's the sort of the common courtesy. So it is a shared resource. I have looked at the design. I have seen the documents, and I agree that they're not perfect. There are areas where, by the way, there's areas where it's pretty narrow right now on the other side of the highway. It's not 5 feet wide, the bicycle paths in a couple of places at all. But people figure it out. They go single file and they manage to get around. But I think that we need the bollards. We need the safety. We need a place for pedestrians. There's zero place now. They need something. We need to get kids to the high school. We need to get pedestrians to be able to come here. It's just not fair at this particular point to provide them no access at all. So we need to get them some access, and I think that this project does it. That said, I can certainly support the maintenance agreement, and we can sort of table the actual design critique down the road a little bit until we get a little bit more information. But we do have a clock on this thing, and we've got, I think, 24 months to get this thing done and paid for. So there is some urgency there to get this done for a third of our town who lives over there, who has been crying for this for many, many years.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Councilmember Wall.
Yeah. So I tend to agree with Hassan and Paul. I'm on East Coast time, so I'm going to keep this punchy. I do support the project. I think it's important for us to use this $800,000 grant. If we don't use it, it goes away. I do think it's important to consider pedestrians. I think, it's a real it'll be a real value add to have a way for pedestrians to navigate from Woodside High to Town Center. I live in the area, and I know I'd love for my kids and myself to be able to walk that area. The ones I get the delta, I think, between what I want to say and what Paul just said is my understanding is that we actually, in addition to approving the maintenance agreement, we really don't have another opportunity to substantively weigh in on the design, or may not. And so what I would suggest is some direction to council. We have a new and old town engineer, right, who's working for us now. I would love to see what can be done, right? Is there an opportunity to address some of the concerns that we heard tonight within the design constraints of the project, within the cost constraints? If there are improvements that could be made, I'd love to address some of those concerns. But net, I think, even though it's not a perfect project, I do support it. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple points here. I sit on the county congestion management committee, and the research that we've seen and been shown on pedestrians versus bicycles, so to speak, is the bicycle and cars. The average bicyclist is not comfortable if cars are going faster than 25 miles an hour past them. And I can certainly appreciate that's what we're talking about, what Paul's talking about. Yet I hear from you, Steve, that they're going 45 miles an hour down that hill. To me, that's crazy. And I don't want to encourage that any more than I feel required to. I sure don't want to be responsible for accidents because we approved a project that's going to encourage people to speed down that road. And from my standpoint, is I don't want to spend any more money on a project that could be dangerous. At the same time, we're only 2 miles from downtown, and the walking distance to high school would be of interest to the residents whose kids are in high school or going to be going to high school. So for that part, I like to see that part as strong and as have an emphasis as we can. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Councilmember Abarish.
Thank you. I just have a few. It seems like a good project, and $800,000 of federal funding that I would not want to lose. And it sounds like if we want to tinker with the project, to the extent we're able to make small improvements, great. Without putting that at risk. I just don't want to, throw the baby out with the bathwater by trying to redo the whole thing now at a late stage. And I think it's unfortunate that there wasn't more of a public process, but it seems like a good improvement. I think there's a great benefit to having walkability in the community. I would walk to high school when I was in high school. Sometimes I'd be able to walk home, walk to friends' houses. Even my kids are in elementary school, and they got me to walk them 4 miles to their school. It's kind of brutal, but people like to walk, and I think they should have the option. I don't think it should, it should be a dangerous thing for all the communities around there. But ultimately, what's before us today is just the maintenance, and so I feel like we just need to vote on that, and whether we're going to pay the maintenance cost if this goes forward, and then look at this at another meeting if there are little tweaks we can make. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not going to repeat anything. I agree largely with what's been said. To me, the big issue here is the funding mechanism. This was 2021. We applied for and got that grant from NSU. For what it's worth, I was sort of surprised myself. Last year, I asked Kevin, whatever happened with that? So I do think that there has certainly been some process cracks. I want to just acknowledge that for sure. But to me, we can't lose that. It's federally secured. We got an interagency situation here with Caltrans. I think what we're hearing, though, I mean, Jen brought this up, and Hassan has brought it up. I mean, this is the 11th hour, so it's a bit of a Hail Mary if we were to ask, but I think at the very least, we could get a report out, maybe check in. What would happen could we get a foot? Can we get 6 feet? We not, what would that mean? And just, if we can't get the answer by the first meeting in January, that's what the consent item says. We checked in, we have no response, and therefore our opinion remains the same, that we cannot jeopardize the funding. But who knows? If we really can get a foot and they say, yeah, we probably can turn that around in 3 months and we won't jeopardize. I mean, again, that's a risk that we would have to then assume because we have no control whatsoever on the actual implementation. But if we got an answer that was that cut and dry, at least we would be informed in the first meeting in January of that. So I think maybe if to strike a balance, I'm in complete agreement. I do not want to lose funding. This is the maintenance agreement. I'm all for approving this maintenance agreement, but we do have 2 council members, and I would actually concur that at the very least, we should be able to do a report out in the January meeting and just see if there's any design wiggle room at all. And if the answer is no, or there's no response, it's dead on arrival. But if there's something reasonable, that might be able to kick off a quick turnaround on our part. Does that seem reasonable to council and to staff, or no?
Yeah, this is the town manager. It seems reasonable to me, but I want to just double check with the deputy engineer for the town just to make sure that we have a pathway to ask those questions.
So if I'm understanding correctly, we want to check with Caltrans to see if we can revise the design.
Yeah, I think we just want to say we're receiving a lot of public feedback that's asking for if there's any wiggle room in the design, even if it's minor. Is that something that would be doable with a reasonable turnaround time that wouldn't jeopardize our funding window?
I will
That's a
definitely.
big ask, but I mean, I'm doing the 11th hour and 59-minute ask here. It's unlikely. I mean, let's be honest, highly unlikely. But I think what we're hearing is we'd like to be responsive to what we're hearing at the local level.
Definitely, I'll check with Caltrans.
Does that work for everybody on council?
It does.
Okay. I think with that, we better just take a motion on this. It's
Make a
gone on for
motion
an hour.
to approve consent item number 3.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Jen?
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for the comments. We do appreciate the on the ground view and all the work of the circulation committee, which we respect tremendously. Okay, on to new business item A, report on LAFCO. And Jason, I understand we have some guests here that we might be handing off to. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Jason Ledbetter, the town manager for the town of Woodside. We have the executive director of LAFCO, Rob Bartoli, here today to give an update on the municipal services review process for the town of Woodside.
Good evening, Mayor Domkowski, town council members and town staff. My name is Rob Bartoli. I'm the executive officer for the San Mateo Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO. And I'm here tonight, as town council member Ledbetter said, that to present a overview of the draft municipal service review that LAFCO has conducted for the town of Woodside. We could move to the next slide after this. Just a very brief overview of what LAFCO is. So again, the Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO, is a independent agency from local, county, and state governments. And we have review authority from the state regarding the boundaries of jurisdictions within the county, where there are 20 cities and the 55 special districts, along with any kind of formation or changes to the governance of those agencies. And one of the other tasks that we have is state mandated studies called municipal service reviews, or MSRs, along with spheres of influences. And I'll talk about those on the next slide a little bit more. So a municipal service review is a state law required mandated study that helps LAFCO, the public, and other agencies understand public services, governance and delivery options for the subject jurisdiction, and helps evaluate options for the provision of those efficient services and effective public services. Municipal services then inform what is known as a sphere of influence, which is basically a plan for service or a planned area of essentially expansion or growth of a local agency, and what those physical boundaries are, and what services would be provided in that area if there was future annexations or boundary changes to a local jurisdiction. On the next slide, just a couple of key issues that we highlighted in the report. And also we did this in conjunction with the town of Woodside, or town of Portola Valley, I should say. And so the town's finances, the general fund is balanced. LAFCO has no concerns about the finances of the town of Woodside. However, a similar situation with Portola Valley is that the sheriff contract has had use of reserve funds and fund balance, and without enhanced town revenue or reductions in that service contract, the town does anticipate $1 million gap by fiscal year 2030 and 31. One of the other key issues that I'll talk about a little bit on a couple of other slides here in a moment is that the majority of the town is served by septic systems. And there are some portions of the town that do receive sewer services either from the town directly or from another sewer agency. And as development occurs, the town will need to consider whether expanding of public services through, especially sewer services, will be required to support those projects, particularly if those are projects that have been identified in the regional housing needs allocation. Overall, for the town of Woodside, the population of about 5,000 on this map in orange is the existing boundaries of the town of Woodside. In the yellow is what's known as its sphere of influence, and that has historically remained the same with parts of Slack, with parts of Jasper Ridge, and then what's known as the Western Hills area, both to the north and to the west of town. As I mentioned, the town is largely served by septic. There's a projected growth of about 2 to 4%. The regional housing element has over 300 new units of housing that's proposed within that cycle. But again, when that develops is different than when it is planned for. So while growth may be lower at 2 to 4%, because those housing units may not come in at the cycle, they're just being planned for at this time. So there could be a difference depending on what development pressures the town has in the next couple of years. On the next slide, when we're talking about capacity, one of the areas that we have to look at for a municipal service review is the capacity and the adequacy of public facilities and services. As I again mentioned, one of the major issues regarding finances, and again, this is very similar in Portola Valley, is the cost of the sheriff's contract and those impacts to the finances of the town. The town is very aware of this. Staff, we've had many conversations with staff about this particular issue. So it is not anything that I'm bringing to you that you should be surprised about. And, you know, looking at the issues of sewer, we've had conversations, LAFCO has had conversations with the town, with the county, which I'll talk about more here in a moment, about exploring options for increased sewer access within the town that is currently not served by sewer. And those areas along Cañada Road or along Woodside Road, kind of constrained, particularly for where those sewer systems are currently. And one of the largest issues is that there's no sewer treatment facility within the town, and the service is reliant upon others. for sewer services. So that is a constraint and something that we'll continue to probably talk about at LAFCO, at the town staff level, and then at the county. So diving a little bit more into sewer services in the town of Woodside, between 30 to 40% of the parcels in the town are currently connected to sewer, while the rest are served by on-site septic systems. And there are 3 sewer providers. One is the town of Woodside directly with the town center sewer assessment area. The other is the Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District, which is a county governed district, which covers portions of the town of Woodside, portions of Atherton, portions of Redwood City, unincorporated areas. That's a very large district that stretches all the way from the Bayside to here. And then there is a small portion that is all east of 280 that the West Bay Sanitary District, which is an independent special district, serves. But there's limited sewer capacity to expand these sewer areas. So in the case of the town center receives a sewer treatment allocation from the city of Redwood City because all of the sewage treatment flows to Silicon Valley Clean Water, or treatment facility in Redwood City. And there are 4 member agencies that are part of that treatment facility: City of Redwood City, City of St. Carlos, City of Belmont, and then the West Bay Sanitary District. The town center and Fair Oaks receives a small portion of Redwood City's sewer treatment allocation. That is then allocated to town center and allocated to Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District. Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District in turn then gives 150,000 gallons of treatment capacity to the Redwood Creek Assessment District, which is an assessment district that was formed by the town in the 60s. But those areas within the assessment area are actually customers of Fair Oaks. They're annexed into the district. They are billed for sewer services by them. That's their infrastructure. So we're having a small segment of a pie from Redwood City's treatment capacity given to the county, and then a smaller segment of a pie given now to a certain area within the town of Woodside, within that Redwood Creek Assessment District. So there are a lot of challenges with that because there are limited availabilities to increase treatment capacity, particularly when the sewage, for the most part, that's being collected are by agencies that do not have direct treatment capacity at the plant. It is through someone else. On this slide, this is showing the existing service area of the 3 sewer districts. It's kind of zoomed in. In the red is the town center area. In purple is the County Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District. And then in orange are those handful of parcels that are served by the West Bay Sanitary District. So those are parcels that are currently connected. Yes.
Just to orient everybody, the freeway, the 280 is running horizontally across the middle. Of the
Correct.
screen.
So the top of the screen would be towards Redwood City. The south of the screen would be towards the majority of the rest of Woodside. That is correct. And so there are large portions shown on the next map that have no sewer services. And not only are they not near any assessment district, they're just not near any infrastructure at all. And so we've had some challenges with in conversations with the town staff and with the county about thinking about how sewer services could be provided in those areas where there's no existing infrastructure, and the question of treatment capacity would certainly be in play. And in a number of those areas, septic may be viable. It could be a challenge that prevents development, or in other cases, if there was a failed septic system in those areas, it's very unlikely that a septic system could be replaced on that site. The 2 areas kind of most of interest to that particular question is the area kind of along Skyline Boulevard, because again, you have smaller parcels and steeper topography. And what I'll refer to as the area to the northeast corner, kind of near Emerald Lake Hills, the unincorporated area up there, similar situations, smaller parcels in the rest of Woodside with steeper topography, where parcels can either remain on septic but they need replacement, could be concerns, or if they're vacant, highly unlikely that they could get septic in lots of cases. And again, if there are sites kind of that the town has envisioned or called out for in their housing element that do not have sewer systems, that is going to be another point of conversation and something that we recommend that the town explore about how sewer services could be provided. On the next slide, we have a summary kind of our recommendations about regarding the specifics of sewer. So the town is currently starting the process of completing its sanitary sewer master plan for the existing sewer area of the town, for town center and for the Rebel Creek Assessment District. And LAFCO certainly is in support of those efforts. We also encourage the town to meet regularly with the county, with Fair Oaks, and LAFCO to talk about the expansion of the Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District and where that's feasible. One of those things should also be looking at what is the existing number of connections within the system area, and what is the flow amount within the existing system that's coming out of the Rebel Creek Assessment District, to make sure they're within the contracted limits. LAFCO also recommends that the town conduct either a town-wide or an area-specific feasibility study regarding for areas that are outside of existing sewer boundaries, and that should really evaluate where the priorities are in town for sewer services, how those sewer services could be provided, what agency would provide them, whether that be the town or another entity, and how those services then would be financed. This would be, again, particularly important if there are parcels that have been identified as potential housing sites in the housing element, but they're outside of those sewer system services area. Also, LAFCO has been talking with the county and the town regarding streamlining the process of annexations to the Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District. Previously, those annexations were typically done by the County Board of Supervisors, and that required 2 public hearings in conversations with the town and the county. LAFCO now is going to be annexing those parcels, which requires 1 public hearing. So we're going to continue to work with county and town staff to see about streamlining those annexations for the future. Just very briefly on other areas. Again, there's no identified budget or financial practices that LAFCO had concerns with. The town is a tax equity allocation agency, which really limits its property tax value that it receives. The capital improvement plan for the town is largely funded. And as I had mentioned, there are concerns around the cost of the sheriff contracts and those potential impacts to budgets. One of the things that has been mentioned, and the town manager has mentioned this as well, is that the town of Woodside and Portola Valley are having these joint conversations about sheriff contracts and any kind of joint agreement potentially going on in the future. And LAFCO certainly supports those efforts and conversations with the county and the 2 towns. I think I mostly covered this slide actually. And then if we go to this one, so oh, sorry, we can go back 1 slide. So as part of the municipal service review process, we also then look at, again, that planned probable area and the sphere of influence for the town. The town's sphere of influence, or SOI, has relatively been stagnant since it was established when we gave the sphere of influence back in the 70s. However, there's one proposed update that LAFCO does have, that there are 3 parcels that are along West Maple Way at the northern boundary of the town. So that on the right-hand screen, there's a red arrow kind of showing where that is in relationship to the rest of the area. And there's a zoomed in portion on the left hand with those 3 parcels. And again, that would be a little bit east of 280 adjacent to the town boundaries. Those 3 parcels are already developed with single-family houses. They have septic systems on there, and the right-of-way in front of them on West Maple was already within the town. It's surrounded on all sides either by open space or land owned by the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. So if there was ever to be an annexation, the only plausible jurisdiction it could annex to would be the town of Woodside, whether it be needing for municipal services, whether it be wanting political representation to be able to vote in a town election. So there is no other adjacent city. There is no plausibility of annexation to another agency. So, and those houses have been relatively new. And so just as part of this process, one of the things that we were proposing to do is that include these 3 parcels in the sphere of influence. What that would mean is there's no changes to the boundary of Woodside. It would be allowing those property owners, if they wanted to in the future, to be eligible to annex to the town. An annexation is a discretionary action both by LAFCO and the town. So in no way does that require the town to annex those parcels. It just presents the possibility and the eligibility for those property owners. The next steps regarding the specific municipal service review is that LAFCO is requesting any agencies or members of the public to provide draft comments on the report by January 9th. The final municipal service review will be published on the 14th of January and then taken to our LAPCO hearing on January 21st. The meeting will be in person and accessible via Zoom, and the report will be found on our LAPCO website on the 14th. I'd also like to thank Town Manager Ledbetter and town staff for their assistance on the report. It's been great working with them over the last couple of months. And certainly we'll have continued conversations, I think, on issues regarding sewer. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or receive any comments.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bartoli, for a wonderful presentation and probably the most interesting report that I read all year. So really appreciate it. Questions for Rob? Anyone? Sir, Councilman Brown.
I don't see that you've addressed what the available capacity is for sewer or Woodside directly. And I'm just keep thinking about the 300 and something units right now that we're required to start building new units. And then next cycle, another 300 or 400 more units. Where is all that capacity going to come from?
That is one of the questions that LAPCO really has for the town. So as part of our recommendations that we have is that we look at kind of this holistic viewpoint of what are some areas that the town could either make improvements on or do additional resources on or have conversations on with LAPCO or other agencies. That one particular issue about sewer capacity, I think is going to be an ongoing topic, both for LAPCO, the county, and the town, about where the capacity will be. I think there needs to be a baseline understanding of how much capacity is being used, and I think that's what the town is doing now with an action that took last month regarding its sewer master plan and looking at the existing facilities that are in town to have a baseline number for how much capacity is being used in Fair Oaks or the town center. The additional information, LAPCO's recommendation is that the town really should conduct a study about how it would sewer future development. It's not really LAPCO's place to do that study exactly because we have limited resources to do that. But as a recommendation to the town, look at that issue and work with LAPCO if there needs to be boundary changes, sewer districts, and then and other agencies that would potentially provide those sewer services, whether that be the county, whether that would be the West Bay Sanitary District, or that be the town itself. So I think there's still a lot of questions on this issue that would need to be addressed before any kind of plan can come forward to it. And then we'll see whether or not there would need to be a LAPCO action accordingly, or if that's something that's just within the powers of the town to complete.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
First, thank you for a really great presentation. We deal with these issues a lot, sewer and annexation and all these other kind of big infrastructure issues. And like that you mentioned, it's nice to know that there's another body there. You guys are a mysterious organization to most of us, but you're out there thinking about the same things, probably much deeper than we do. So thank you for that. I was intrigued by the annexation issue that you mentioned at the end, these 3 parcels that are out there. It's interesting that that's the only one you identified because we do have these sort of like appendages in various places. We had a few by the high school a few years ago that were, I forgot they were named greenways and I forgot the other ones, but that we did annex ultimately. But are there any other areas that you identified those 3 parcels which are sort of sitting out there by themselves, and it obviously wouldn't make any sense for them to be anywhere else but Woodside, I would think. And there's clearly no urgency there, but any other areas that LAFCO may have identified that we should be looking at?
For changes within the sphere of influence, no, because the sphere of influence really does incorporate it includes, I should not say incorporate, it includes the territory already around Woodside High that still remains unincorporated. And
it includes the Western Hills too,
yes,
right? Going all the way up.
So in that whole section, where there are still unincorporated territory, that has already kind of been allocated either to some cases Redwood City or in some cases Woodside. The question about, if there was changes beyond the sphere of influence, really that would only be inclusive of areas that are along Skyline Boulevard or further west. where there was limited infrastructure, where the county has certain protection policies about rural lands. And we would have probably additional questions about whether we could include those and whether the town would be interested in annexing those parcels. Because that it is similar, some areas it's similar in nature to some of the areas in town. Further west, it gets a little bit different and more rural or more uses that are more rural like where you have ag or other, timber harvest productions that are in that area. So LAFCO, at least as part of this process, has not identified any other parcels to include right now within the sphere of influence. But if town staff or town council has other ideas or something that we should be looking at, we certainly welcome those comments.
So specifically, I'm asking about an area, actually, I was up there this weekend for other reasons, but so the town limits end on Skyline at Old La Honda Road. if I'm not mistaken. It's like right over, there's a sign that says entering the town of Woodside, I think, as you're coming in, as you're heading north. So I'm thinking about the area from roughly Old La Honda to almost Page Mill. That's about 5 miles or so, along Skyline, but on the downhill side, on the side overlooking the valley. Is that an area, right now that's unincorporated San Mateo County?
Yes, and I'd have to go look at a map because I believe there's some portions of Portola Valley that go up that far up the Skyline as well. At least at one of the intersections. So we'd have to kind of see where those boundaries are right now and what is in Portola Valley's sphere of influence. Offhand, I'd have to go look at our maps to see that. Portola Valley being south of Woodside, my guess is that a large area of that swath is within Portola Valley.
It may make more sense for them.
And again, the limitations about services in that area, those challenges about service to delivery, that would certainly be something that the town would want to think about for if those parcels were actually annexed, how that service delivery would occur, what those costs would be, what services would be provided. Because similarly to Portola Valley, the western portions of the town of Woodside, town of Portola Valley, there's limited sewer services, again, being the driving factor. Most of those houses, if there are developments, are all on septic.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yes.
So there's one, based on Paul's comments and questions, there's one kind of area on Big Tree off of Skyline. I know that half of the neighborhood is in Woodside proper, and then the other half is unincorporated Woodside. And then do you know how those things are decided, or is that would be something?
So I'd have to see whether or not that would be like within the sphere of influence, again, where it could be annexed to the town. So prior to 1963, annexations typically happened either at the county level or at the city level. Certainly when the town was formed, it was pre-LAFCO dates. And so we're talking about legislation at the state, and when those changes came in, are all, a lot of the times it's driven by property owners. It's driven by, we would like to be part of this community, or in urbanized areas where there's urban levels of services, especially sewer or water. Those agents, you're unincorporated and I would like to develop my parcel. I need a service from that municipality to be able to do that, or densify my parcel in those ways. So that's where a lot of the demand comes from. Some other jurisdictions would like to see, again, prior to Prop 13, annexing territory because that sees it as a revenue generator. Some areas still do that now because they see that as sales tax, because if they annex a commercial area or industrial area, sometimes residential property values are high enough in this county where there still can be a net value to annexations of parcels. But a lot of times those annexations come from property owners for a variety of reasons. So that might be why, why that line was there. It could have been very well that many years ago, someone wanted to be part of Woodside and maybe the neighbors didn't want to.
Thank you.
Okay. And maybe one last one real quick. The sheriff's contract is one that you identify as basically our ticking time bomb financially, anyway, for us. How often is it that you find something that you highlight that's fiscally unsustainable, and what, if any, reaction do you get from elected officials when you do that?
So in most of the time, the issues that LAFCO has highlighted, especially on the finances for towns and cities in this county, the town staff, the town council, the city staff, city council are very well aware of those particular issues, whether it be a structural deficit that they're trying to address through revenue measures or trying to figure out how to pare down costs as they can. or they have one particular area where they know that that contracted for service is going to continue to increase and they can project the revenue because it's especially in a TEA city that's mostly residential. Your revenue is probably going to stay relatively on the same stream here. So you can do those projections where compared to other cities that have different revenue sources or higher fluctuations potentially in revenue sources. That could be a challenge. Certainly, if there's something that LAFCO could do to assist town staff or town council with particular issues, especially if they're not aware of them, we're more than happy to have those conversations. But like I said, most times the elected officials, town councils, city councils are aware of the issues, and they've already looked at a lot of options. So in our case, in this LAFCO report, it's just a recommendation potentially to work with Portola Valley on a little bit closer situations, because there are limited options unless the town wants to change levels of services or change providers about what those costs will be probably going forward, unless there's direct conversations in with the county about the cost of the contract.
Okay, I think with that, is there any member of the public that would like to comment on the LAFCO report? Don't take it as a knock, but there is no one. So any deliberation from council? We are basically just accepting this report tonight. Is there a vote, or we're just letting people know they have until January 9th to add comments?
That meeting is going to be,
The LAFCO meeting will be January 21st at 2:30 p.m., which is Wednesday afternoon, at the County Board of Supervisors chambers at 500 County Center in Redwood City. And it's also accessible via Zoom, and you can receive that link off the LAFCO website.
thank you. None of us are going to be there, by the way, but thank you for,
Thank you.
I'm just kidding.
Right. I'll just say, I think we're generally in the position of saying that we understand the entire assessment and
Yeah.
are largely in agreement with it.
Presentation.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
very interesting. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business B, introduction of an ordinance for building regulation. So that's going to, is that going to you, Jason?
Yeah, I'll introduce this. We have online our third-party consultant, CSG Greg McFan, is here to present this item. But I just wanted to make a correction on this ordinance as well. Unfortunately, on page 4 of this ordinance, section D references high fire severity zone map from 2008, and that verbiage needs to be replaced with the February 24th, 2025 date.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. McFan.
Thank you. Mayor and member of councils, I'm Greg McFan. I'm the interim building official for Woodside. Tonight, we're introducing an ordinance to adopt the 2025 California Building Standards Codes and update Chapter 150 of the Woodside Municipal Code. The new statewide codes take effect January 1st, 2026, and every city and town in California is required to enforce them. By adopting the codes locally, Woodside has also preserves the ability to include existing local amendments that address our unique conditions, such as steep topography, wildfire exposure, narrow roads, and limited water pressure. While we are not including any new local Woodside amendments, this new code adoption, the state did make changes in the 2025 codes. The most significant statewide changes include several new energy electrification requirements. Specifically, all new homes will now require heat pumps for space and water heating, and all new buildings will need to be electric ready, which includes upgraded electrical panels and conduits for future level 2 EV charging. Another major update is the consolidation of wildland urban interface standards currently found in the building and residential codes will now be included in a new standalone California Wildland Urban Interface Code, or WUI code. It's important to note that the California Fire Code is not included in this agenda item, as it is in the next agenda is the ratification of the Woodside Fire Protecting District's adoption of the 2025 Fire Code. In summary, adopting these codes ensures that Woodside remains compliant with the state law while allowing us to maintain more restrictive local amendments that support public safety and reflect the town's environmental and topographical uniqueness. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions for Mr. McFan? Yes, sir. Councilmember Brown.
Defensible space requirements. I'm not quite certain where we are on that. Because on one hand, we're being told by the state that we have to build as close as 4 feet from the neighboring property line. And then the fire department is telling us that we can't have any hazardous materials within 5 feet of our homes. And remove a lot of other material up to 100 feet away. What is defensible space? I'm very unclear on that.
I'm going to leave the defensible space question to the fire district. It's more of a fire district question. The building code does have specific requirements about distance to property lines and fire protection, limiting numbers of windows depending on how close you are to property lines. But the defensible space is a fire code issue.
Council Member Brown, if I may, I just wanted to point out that one of the caveats or one of the special caveats to this year's building code is the separation of the fire code. And we do have that item coming next with the deputy or with the fire marshal. And I think that she probably would be better suited to answer it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we will go to public comment. Any members of the public that would like to speak on any of these code issues? Seeing none, we'll close comment. Any deliberation from council? Okay, then I think we are open to a motion to accept
Yes.
business B.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce an ordinance amending Woodside's Municipal Code, Chapter 150, Building Regulations to adopt the 2025 California Building Standards Code and finding that the ordinance is exempt from review pursuant to the CEQA.
Second.
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mr. McFan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving right along to new business item C, and we are welcoming Fire Marshal Giuliacci. Welcome, Kim.
And just to interject here, ultimately, the Woodside Fire Protection District has introduced and adopted the fire code, and the Woodside Fire Protection District obviously services the town of Woodside. And so this evening is more of the ratification request to the council, thereby accepting the adoption of an ordinance that had already passed at Woodside Fire Protection District. Thank you.
I was just going to say that. That's a lot to say in one breath. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to just come forward, and this ordinance had been sent to towns back in September for our public outreach as well as public comment openings. It was posted and open for comments. Usually the fire code is not something that a lot of people weigh in on, only because we are such a heavily residential area here. There's not a lot of business and commercial here. The fire code is part of our amended fire code is part of the building standards that gets adopted every 3 years. Title 24, which includes building, mechanical, plumbing, all that is changed every 3 years with modifications and updates. Us as a local jurisdiction, we have the authority to modify the California Fire Code as it's been written by the state of California, given the topographical, geological, and climatic reasons here within Woodside. So a lot of jurisdictions, because the state is different all over the place, they can't adopt a code that's going to be a one size fits all for everybody. So we come in, we look at what has been updated, we decide what we want to modify within the fire code, and that's basically what we did in the new prevention code for Woodside Fire, and that was adopted on November 18th. Not a lot of major changes that would affect residences. The biggest thing that would affect residents, but it's more of a help, is we did reduce an area that is the fire flow requirement for fire hydrants. Historically, and for a very long time, it was required that all hydrants had to have a fire flow minimum of 1,000 gallons per minute. That would be required when you're doing new construction or remodels when there was a 50% trigger. We are finding that now that residential construction has really increased a lot over the last couple years. It's been a big boom in that area, and because of it, it's triggered a lot of people to look at fire flows, and they weren't meeting that 1,000, therefore making it very challenging for projects to move forward, and also for contractors to have to look for ways to how to mitigate that. Since they're not meeting it, they had to do other things such as water tanks and other measures that would basically replace the fact that those fire flows weren't at 1,000. The fire code by the state gives their minimum is 500 gallons per minute. And so we were more restrictive for many years, most likely because we're in the wildland urban interface. However, in researching and looking how much things have changed over time, and the fact that all construction now are new construction and major remodels are now fully sprinklered structures, it kind of helps mitigate that problem with requiring those 1,000 gallons for specific types of residences that are specific square footage of that structure. So with that, and with research at looking at how we can help homeowners as they develop and they try to build, we did put a reduction into the fire code. So now the minimum is 750 gallons per minute, which for the most part, pretty much all the hydrants in this district that Cal Water does provide is around that amount. So, they're usually 760, 780. So we're a lot closer to help support in the building and construction moving forward. That's probably the major change in the ordinance that would affect residential construction. Back to Councilmember Brown's question on defensible space. It is somewhat confusing. The state of California, through the Government and Public Resources Code, what they have put in place for the requirement for defensible space, zone 0, all that, it's applicable in the high, and soon in 2026 of January will be applicable to the high and the very high. Because we had that fuel mitigation ordinance that we adopted last year, and we were trying to basically take a step further, and in making, raising awareness to people that it really doesn't matter if you're in the moderate, the high, or the very high. When the fire comes through, it's going to burn wherever it finds fuel. So having that separation of fire hazard severity zones, it doesn't mean you're at less risk just because you're in the moderate. You're still in a risky area. And especially here where we are, we're surrounded by that. And so that was part of the motivation on having the fuel mitigation ordinance that we adopted, that it would be applicable to the entire fire district, regardless of what zone you're in. So state law has that written in. We did a more restrictive modification to what state law states through our local ordinance. This fire code has nothing to do with that defensible space. This is building standards, and everything to do with defensible space is a non-building standard. And so not to confuse these two ordinances, that it's a completely different subject matter. But as was already said before, California now has their own wildland urban interface code. It's separate. It was pulled out of the building code. In the building code, it was in chapter 7, and that was pulled out completely. And now they have their own standalone code for that, which the state fire marshal's office has adopted, and it's applicable to the entire state of California, but only in the very high fire hazard severity zones. So within this ordinance, the only thing we did as far as that WUI code goes is we did adopt specific chapters within our ordinance to make sure that we are applying that, just like the fuel mitigation ordinance, that it's applicable throughout the entire district and not just the very high. So we wanted to make them complement each other so there was no conflicts in the district. Thank you. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions for Fire Marshal? Yes, sir.
Yes. Can we get the citizens' definition, a specific definition of what are acceptable near the house, vegetation, plants, trees, etc.? I mean, literally, so they know what to go out and buy and what they really have to take out.
I think that would be good for us to be able to provide maybe a booklet or a pamphlet to describe that. This would be a lot to give in this type of meeting setting, but we're happy to provide that for residents so it can help them as they do their landscaping or plan their landscaping.
Can we get that sooner than later? Because a lot of people are already talking about it.
It's already, a lot of that's already on our website. So a lot of those things will all be acceptable, but yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, we'll close questions. Any comments from public on ratifying this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close public. Any deliberations from council? This is one where we can only make it worse, right? Do we have a motion to ratify this ordinance by the fire department, fire district?
I'll make a motion for a resolution of the town council of the town of Woodside ratifying ordinance number 14-2025 of the Woodside Fire Protection District.
Second that.
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Thank you, Kim.
Thank
Always
you,
a pleasure
everyone.
to have you.
Thank you, and wishing you all a nice Christmas holiday season and until the next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too. Okay, moving on to new business item D, introduction of an ordinance adopting prohibition of gas-powered leaf blowers. And this, I think, is going to Brandy, but through you, so.
Oh, this will be me. I'll be presenting this.
Oh, okay.
But thank you. Yeah, so the clerk will pull up the slideshow, please. And next slide, please. So we have some history here that I just want to go over with you guys real quick. So July of 2020, Town Council holds a study session to discuss leaf blower regulations. September of 2020, Council creates a local law dictating the hours of operation for commercial businesses to provide leaf blower services. So as it stands right now, there is a law that was created by this body about leaf blowers, and it ties it to construction essentially, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30. You can operate a leaf blower, and 8 to 1 p.m. on Saturday for commercial businesses such as landscapers. January of 2021, the state of California announces that it will outlaw the sale of small off-road engines starting in January of 2024. And then finally, council last entertained the idea of a possible ordinance over the topic of leaf blowers in October of 2024. And at that meeting, the council was hung 3-3 as we still had 6 members on the town council, and no ordinance was passed at that time. The items that stood out for discussion at that time were the 5-acre minimum requirement did not satisfy some folks that lived in highly wooded areas that were on smaller than 5-acre parcels, specifically in the Western Hills. There was an emergency declaration and some exception verbiage that has also been removed that was problematic for staff at that time. But some positive things have come when it comes to leaf blowers with the town council in the town of Woodside. And one of those is that the town council had found a way to create $76,000 available to the public to transition from gas-powered leaf blowers to electric leaf blowers. And to date, we have spent $62,000 of the $76,000 of vouchers in order to do that. 136 $250 vouchers to residents of that own property less than 5 acres in Woodside. $24,000 vouchers for residents that own 5 acres or more, and 4 $1,000 vouchers to landscape companies that work within Woodside have been issued to date. Next slide, please. So what has happened locally here in San Mateo County as far as leaf blower ordinances? Atherton, Hillsborough, Burlingame, Menlo Park, and Portola Valley have all adopted ordinances at different time periods prohibiting the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. Next slide. So what are the main differences this evening compared to the last ordinance that you reviewed? And specifically, what is done is that instead of having the 5-acre minimum, we are now looking at specific zoning districts. And so specifically, the special conservation planning and the open space districts would still be allowed to utilize the gas-powered leaf blower. Next slide. And so here is a map that you can take a look at. This is the zoning map for the town. And so if you are within the orange or red boundary, if the town council so saw the opportunity and agreed to introduce this ordinance this evening and eventually adopted it, that would mean that you were not allowed to use a gas-powered leaf blower within that boundary. And anything stated on this document that is SCP or Special Conservation Planning or open space, you would still be allowed to use the gas-powered leaf blower. Next slide. So when we compare the town's long master plans and goals and goal-setting sessions of the past, what we see is that in the 2012 general plan, it recognizes leaf blowers as a source of noise for the residents, and that the town's goal is to minimize noise disturbances to benefit the peace and quiet of our neighborhoods. And this ordinance, as presented this evening, does exactly that. Next slide. So we believe this ordinance, staff believes this ordinance is reasonable and balanced. It addresses the concerns from 2024 with residents that were concerned that these electric leaf blowers couldn't work very well in these areas that were heavily wooded in the Western Hills. It removes that concern on some level, or for the majority of folks. It improves the day-to-day experience of residents in the more densely populated areas that would not have the use of the gas-powered leaf blowers, and it builds on the work town has already been completing. So over the last few years, the town has added EV charging stations. They've added solar to Town Hall and Independence Hall. They've started the voucher program, transitioning residents from gas-powered to battery leaf blowers as well. It also supports the town advisory committees. There's a letter of support from the Open Space Committee, and the disbanded Environment Committee had 2 members that also supported this with a letter of support. Next slide. So a lot of times you ask, how is this going to be enforced? And ultimately, it will follow the normal pathway of code enforcement. There's nothing specific in this ordinance for enforcement, so it will default to the administrative pathway for code enforcement. When we talk about administrative law, a lot of enforcement is more education-based, and this is essentially a law that I look at very similar to anti-smoking laws, or what some people commonly refer to as kind of the soccer mom law, right? Where if you wanted to stop something from happening, you kind of incentivize people to be in a space and thereby have society stop when we outlawed smoking. So similar instance, most of the community probably won't be aware of an ordinance like this that gets passed. And ultimately, when complaints come in, it gives the opportunity for the resident to complain to the town, and then the town takes the step of educating the resident, and 99% of the times we gain compliance in that fashion. Next slide. So ultimately, this evening, if adopted, this would go into effect July 1st of 2026, and the reason for that, it would give us time to educate the town itself, the residents, and then reach out to the landscapers and our own staff to make sure that we have transitioned to the correct equipment as well. Next slide. So this evening, it is recommended that the town council introduce the attached ordinance, adopting a new section 94.06, prohibition of gas-powered leaf blowers of Chapter 94, Health and Sanitation, and schedule a second reading and adoption of the ordinance for the January 13, 2026 town council meeting. And we have strategically left the map as the very last slide, and we'll just leave this up here for you guys to deliberate with.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff?
I have one.
Yes, council member.
Thank you. Were you able to figure out, do you know, bottom of the map, there's that little red circle. That's most of my district is excluded aside from kind of the outside of the Western Hills. There's some portion, but inside the Western Hills, there's that one small area that I believe is around Alice's restaurant. Do you know why that is and what kind of why that part's included?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Abarish. Councilmember Abarish is referring to the bottom left corner, which is essentially the intersection of Alice's, and it is Alice's, the community commercial, and then across the street zoning. And then right next to that, we have this very small RR section, whereas everywhere else it's kind of SCP, essentially all in this area, SCP. I don't have the understanding or the historical understanding of why, but I'm assuming, and I would look to Sage possibly on this one, is that historically that this would probably be one of the older locations in the community, but.
Yes, I don't have anything else to add. I mean, it is the commercial area. Then part of one of the parcels there where the gas station is, and behind that is an RR zoning parcel. But yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, we will open up public comment. Mr. Dishler, you have been so patient this evening. Thank you. Would you like to?
Thank you. I guess I'm the only one who likes to go out and use their backpack gas blower. Or has to, I guess. If you could go to your binder on page 3 of this item D at the bottom. Staff is also working to identify higher powered electric leaf blowers for the town to evaluate in servicing its properties. That's the problem. The electric leaf blowers are just not as efficient, let alone they run out of power. If you have a property like an SR1 property of an acre and you have enough trees, they take a lot of time to do the job. The solution, and I'm hoping you can indulge me with a little time. Stephanie couldn't be here. She wrote a letter. She's taking my son to the airport. And she had some points that I said I would make for her. The next page, staff talks about the solution, which is to exempt certain sized lots. And if you go to page 4, in the paragraph that starts the attached leaf blower ordinance, they exempt certain electric leaf blowers would be capable of, they say, would be capable of servicing larger, heavily wooded properties while also improving the day-to-day experience of residents in more densely populated areas of Woodside. So what they've done is they're proposing the tan areas of large properties to be exempt, banning gas leaf blowers in densely populated areas. But there are lots of properties that are in between the 5 acres and the R1s, the densely populated areas. I live in an area that are over an acre. I don't hear the gas leaf blowers. So I think that there needs to be some thinking about, is there a more of an exemption, exempt SR1s from the gas leaf blower ban? I appreciate the independent judgment that you have exhibited on this issue and not just blindly gone along with the other jurisdictions. My wife I'm lucky, I don't have to do it all the time with my blower. We do have somebody that comes and helps, and she talked to him, and he, and this is in her letter, and he works in Menlo Park and Atherton, and has had to deal with these electric leaf blowers. and they aren't as good. They take more time. He has two choices: not do as good of a job or charge more money because he has to take more time. And that's the choice you may be making right here. I thought I would be the only one here talking about it because not a lot of people, keep up on what's going on. I think this needs more work. I suggest that you exempt SR1 from this, just like you've exempted the 5-acre pieces of property. Another alternative would be put a sunset in this ordinance. It's harder to repeal an ordinance than to re-up an ordinance. If I want an SR1 exemption. Another alternative would be a 2 or 3 year period, sunset, see how people feel about it. If they are experiencing increased costs of yard maintenance or because it takes longer or it's not as good a job, then you'll hear about that maybe, and you could think about that before you re-up an ordinance. But I do think that 1-acre pieces of property, it's really, really hard to use the lower powered leaf blowers that even the town or the staff admits is a problem. So that's my urging, just continue. I think this needs more work. And I ask you to continue the independent judgment on how people will feel about this when it gets implemented, if it gets implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on item D? Leaf blowers. San, yes, from the Zoom room. You're everywhere.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, sorry, I had to get home and deal with the kids. Just 2 quick comments. One, to echo the previous speaker. I know it's been said in the past that, oh, the electric ones are as good as the gas. They're not. If it's as powerful as gas, the battery will last very little time, and then you got to buy more batteries and swap them, or it's just not as strong. So again, the big properties, I think we've all concluded, which you guys agreed, appreciate you guys being independent on this. The big properties, the electric just doesn't work today, maybe in 5 or 10 years. I like the idea. I like the way to try to, hey, we're going to have the bigger properties be exempt, which I think is a great idea. I think trying to do it by zoning district, I can't tell you what my zoning district is. I'm pretty sure most people can't either, or their type of property. I still advocate just do it by property size, 1 acre or bigger. You can use gas, less you don't. Most people probably know how big their property is. And again, once you're at an acre, like the previous speaker was saying, you're farther away from your neighbor in the center of their property. You probably don't hear it as much. So I like the idea. I like the fact that the town is willing to compromise and not just kind of go whole hog into a regulation. That does obviously affect people's usage of their property and safety. I'd say just do it in a way that is easy for residents to understand whether or not it applies to them. And just for the record, again, I live on a 1/4 acre property. I have a gas blower, haven't turned it on in years. So I actually have no stake in this game, but just for the other residents who do need them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment and go to deliberation. Is there anything that any council member would like to throw into the mix? Councilmember Brown.
I'll simply say, I look at this as a reasonable compromise on where we were and where most of our neighbors are. We've been looking at this now for what, 5 years?
7, actually.
And we can keep changing it, but in a couple of years, we're going to be told you don't have a choice anyway. So I'm kind of the opinion that we ought to just go ahead with what we think is a good compromise and get on with it.
Okay, thank you. Others, Councilmember Abarish.
Yeah, this came up when right before I joined the council, and I remember speaking on this issue. It was very unpopular in my district generally, but looking at this map, I think this is the compromise that we were looking for. It is now basically excluded most of my district. So, and I think what the real issue is a specific problem they're having in the Glens and certain other neighborhoods that, and I can understand, where it's a noise issue. It's probably very frustrating for the people that are impacted. It wouldn't be very popular in my district. But I do think, using Jason's example of a cigarette ban, I think it's really only going to be enforced if somebody is actually calling and asking for it to be enforced. And if you have neighbors that don't really care that you're doing it, like where I live, even if it were to expand to my district, or to where I live, I can't imagine any of my neighbors calling to report me or to even ask me to stop using it. I use an electric leaf blower anyway, but that said, so I'm hoping that it's not actually going to be a significant issue that, and I think there is some question, not encouraging anyone to, openly violate ordinances, but I think this is kind of a solution to a real problem, and one that really is only going to be enforced if it is a problem. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, three very quick points. There is a state ban on the sale, so it's going to go away organically by natural attrition here as it goes out. I mean, look at the incandescent light bulbs. Go buy some. I mean, and by the way, that's now spread to other states too, so they're hard to get unless you've ordered them like some of us have over the past years. But so they are going to go away over time. The other thing I wanted to mention is something that Hassan just said, which is about the enforcement issues. And since we didn't build in any enforcement into this particular regulation, if you're on a bigger property and nobody hears you, there's not going to be any complaints. I would never encourage people to do something that's illegal or against the law, but as a practical matter, there's not going to be much in the way of enforcement anyway, especially on the larger properties. And the last thing I wanted to mention is I have to mention Felipe. Okay, you know that I'm going to mention my guy Felipe, who works at my place every Thursday morning, and I've asked him very specifically this question because one day, it was about a year or two ago, suddenly I didn't hear anything. They were just completely quiet, and I was like looking out the window, and there's the two guys, with their leaf blowers, and I couldn't hear anything. They're really, really quiet. And so they have a pretty big one with a big backpack. And I know it's heavy, it's all battery. But I asked them specifically about the power, and they said, hey, these are good, but we do have to change we do carry on the truck spare battery packs, and we typically get about one property out of them, which isn't much. We live on an acre, a little over an acre. And it is an issue. So I think that's it. But they didn't have any complaints about the power. So I understand. I think the technology is improving, and I'm understanding there's some attachments you can get. But your point is very well taken. But I think that, as Hassan said, this is actually a pretty good compromise. And for those who are still on bigger pieces of property, I don't think the enforcement is going to be coming to get you anytime soon. Probably the leaf blowers will give out before we get a complaint.
Thank you, sir. And Councilmember Wall at 12:45. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
With us.
Absolutely. This is an important topic, something I have felt passionate about since I've been on the council, and we've definitely had a lot of history with this topic. So, really pleased to see it re-agendized. I think I'm really comfortable with this compromise. I mean, I think the writing is on the wall for gas-powered leaf blowers. The state of California has passed legislation phasing out the sale of them. I think, one thing that hasn't been mentioned is I think that makes the gas-powered leaf blowers that are out there pretty old. With old equipment, I think we probably get decreased performance. So I just think as our neighboring towns and cities have done. I mean, I think this is not equipment that really should be continued to be used within Woodside. Woodside's kind of been a strange outlier and not banning the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. In addition to noise pollution, there's also significant air pollution that comes with this equipment. So it is a trade-off. I think I've heard and heard tonight and have read differing data on the efficiency of electric equipment. My take is that it's actually quite good and it has really improved. But yeah, I get it. In my mind, there's probably some delta between the performance, but I think the trade-off is worth it, given the noise and air pollution coming from gas-powered leaf blowers. So I'm very supportive, glad to see this back on the agenda. Glad to see that my fellow council members are also supportive. So I think that's a win for Woodside.
Thank you. I'll just say that, we've been working on this for 7 years. This goes all the way back to Mayor Yost. My first year in council, he tried to do a full ban at that time. And we've had a hard time getting this over the hump for a long time. So this is, I think, just an example of where we're trying to listen to the community and trying to get there. We understand it's not perfect, but maybe this gets us maybe 90% of the way there. I will say, as I enter my 8th year on council, there are some things I look back on with pride, where appropriate, on some accomplishments. And there are some things that I regret and that maybe I would have made a different decision on with an evolved perspective or maybe a better solution. And this is actually one of those items. And so I'm glad to see it's here. And I get it that there's a lot of, not everybody will be perfectly happy, but I think after 7 years of iteration on this, this does move the ball down the field pretty substantially. And we can take a look at it over a couple of years. And unfortunately, I mean, if you have the view that you don't want it, unfortunately, this is going in one direction regardless. It's just a matter of time at some level. So I just want to thank the staff for being willing to bring it back a 5th time in 7 years. I appreciate where you're coming from, Dave. And I think the enforcement comments were probably dead on for what it's worth, given how hard it is to enforce things sometimes around here. But that said, we are trying our best to get there. We're not a cookie cutter grid city, and so one size doesn't fit all. And hopefully this gives the town at least the ability to do enforcement and to work with people to get them over the hump, as Jason was saying. So with that, I am supportive. So I think if we could have a motion on this one, and I know, Jen, this was a hot issue for you last year. Would you like to make this motion from DC?
Thank you, Mayor Domkowski. I was going to jump in and make the motion, but I appreciate you extending the opportunity to do so. So let me see. I have to switch screens to get to the packet. All right. I would like to move to approve an ordinance adopting a new section 94.06, a prohibition of gas-powered leaf blowers.
Second.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Gold?
Yes.
Councilmember Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski?
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on to reports, volunteer, anything we have for item A?
Yeah, I have a very brief volunteer report. The Youth Civics Program, where Chris Shaw will be acting as the mayor, has had 10 children sign up so far. That is the only update that I currently have.
He'll be thrilled to know he was mentioned. We'll move on to council member communications. Anything folks want to share with anyone? I can, if you can, either way.
Okay.
Sure.
There was our state assembly person, Mark Berman, held a community outreach event. He apparently does one in each of his cities about every 2 years. He held it at Bucks on Friday. And our mayor was there and we were very well represented. He has an outstanding staff, by the way. Ruby was here tonight. They do a great job. They really do. And it was a really nice event and very well attended. And it was actually attended by some people not from Woodside who had interesting complaints to make. But he's a very engaged. We're really fortunate to have him representing us in the assembly, and he was pretty helpful. And I just wanted to thank the mayor for helping to host this event. It was a really good one.
I think broadly, a big thematic maybe for the new year is just remembering that we're not a provincial island, you know, that we really have to work the county, state, and federal relationships that we have and the interagency relationships we have, like we've heard about tonight. We are an administrative island sometimes. And so, yeah, anything we can do to build relationships. And it was wonderful to have him. And yeah, he stood the fire of insurance and housing and everything that is on everybody's minds these days. Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Speaking of building relationships, I've been working with the towns of Woodside, Atherton, and Patola Valley on a series of senior events. And we have one planned for March 21st next year, dealing with memory and how do you identify memory issues and how do you take care of them if they're in your home. And we're getting so much interest that we're probably going to add a second one in April, maybe early May, dealing with once you identify the problem, what do you do with it when it becomes too much for you to handle on your own? And it's going to be funded jointly. It's not going to be just Woodside, but the first one is going to be here and probably the second one, because we have the best facility, both in terms of the size of the building here, but we have the Zoom capability that nobody else seems to have. So even our friends happen to all the money they've got don't have it.
Sometimes.
So that's going on. And at the same time, Jason and I have been working with the San Mateo County Library System to start doing some upgrades to the library. We've talked to the Garden Club about upgrading the garden. And I'm working with Woodside Fire now to create the library as a prototype of what you can and can't do with plants and vegetation around your home. That is within the scope of what is now authorized, because we're getting a lot of questions from residents about what can I keep and what do I have to throw out? So those are the two things I got going.
Really wonderful what you do with these community events, and we'll look forward to getting a date and being there in support. Anything else?
I'd like to share from Peninsula Clean Energy. Their website has some really great resources for anyone who's trying to convert to full electric. I know you can get interest-free loans and pre-negotiated contracts where you don't have to, deal with negotiating with contractors and trying to get a good price. They've already pre-negotiated. So if you know anyone who's looking to convert to electrification of their home, yeah, I would go to the Peninsula Clean Energy website.
It's awesome. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to congratulate the mayor on his reappointment as our mayor for another year. Well deserved, and we're looking forward to another year of your leadership. Thank you for agreeing to serve for another year. It's no small task.
Help us. Thank you. I appreciate the support of the council to do so. I know it's unusual. Okay, I think with that, we will call it at 9:50 and just wish everybody a happy and safe holiday season.